Hello, and welcome to Read Aloud 3. And Happy New Year, because it has been quite some time. And I have a couple things to say about that, and then we'll get right into it. So, it has been what we call a holiday season. I kind of question, like, why do we call it holidays? Because there's just the one holiday, one holy day, which is Christmas. And then, well, and for some people who are other religions, including like the Jewish religion, there's I think other holy days in there. So, but the other series of events for me that makes it kind of what I'll call a celebratory season is, a week later, of course, it's the new year. And then a week after that, which today is my son's birthday. And so it's like, it's kind of that season for celebration. And I tend to break the routine myself, as with other times of the year. As you've seen it watching my channel, I try to I'm trying to keep up a routine. Let's see how I do this year. So far, I've had a very big struggle with getting this second part of chapter 25, um, of First Samuel out. And I don't know why, but the first time you'll go back into my videos to see the first half of this chapter. I happen to be wearing the same thing, I noticed, so that adds a little cohesiveness after it's been such a long time. That was a redo of a video that wouldn't save. I've had this issue a few times and it's always very frustrating. So then I have to redo it. And so, the commentary kind of changes. And um but then in the middle of that video, why it didn't finish was my cat walked across the re video was that my cat walked across my keyboard and it just stopped. And I was like, I'm going to do the second part later. And later became much later. And then I tried it again. And then I had this issue with saving again, which I've had like on my other channel, and you'll see, I talk about it there if you visit my other channel. I would like to also comment that the video that got posted in between the last video, that's the part one to this, it was I accidentally posted it from intending to post it on my other channel, strangely enough. And I've one other time done that and just left it sort of as an advertisement, like, hey, if you're interested in this kind of content, please visit me there. And so I will say that again. Yes, I'm doing some new things over there. Well, pretty much one new thing that, if you're interested in puppetry at all, or maybe sharing some um, biblical ideas, theology with younger people, I have introduced a puppet at this point, and so that brings the element of, I think it kind of speaks to larger, the generations. And speaking of generations, as I was unable to get my video about this part of the Bible, which is speaking about David and his life, my daughter actually came to do a new series of Bible studies, and it's called Little Big Bible Studies. And she is doing a podcast, and the title of her podcast, the name of her podcast is Fine for Jesus. So I would like to give also an ad for her Bible study, which was kind of cool because then I was able to just listen, to the material and learn. And sometimes, we need to do that, like between the generations. And because I think it was Timothy, where God is saying, don't basically let anyone look down on you because of your age, kind of thing, and like you have something to say. So I think this is a great opportunity that I was able to. She was able to go ahead with very similar content. So please do check that out. And with no further ado, I will get back to the chapter 25 of First Samuel. And it's interesting because this is really exciting chapter for me. I just enjoy this material a lot. And so what I want to do so that you kind of catch the whole idea is backtrack a little bit just to make it a little more cohesive. Um, where Abigail enters the scene, because I did get part way into where she entered the scene in my last video, but let's go back and read that again. Okay. Abigail acted quickly. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, "Go ahead, I'll follow you." But she did not tell her husband, Nabal. Now, in the spirit of cohesiveness, I do feel like I should give a bit of a summary, just in case you haven't watched the first video. I did try to do that in my last video that I tried posting, and I just realized it. I think that's helpful. So, Nabal is someone who David had entered his land, and he had been very helpful to his people while I think they were just like out in the fields, and he was kind of being the protector that he has shown himself to be. He was a shepherd, and basically he's asking for help because remember he's fleeing from Saul. And Nabal is this kind of person who I guess just very well, you'll hear more about him from his wife and it shortly. But you're also he was like suspicious, and he's just like, yeah, no, I don't know who you are, or if you're like basically a rebel, um, without a cause. And I wouldn't say, yeah, I wouldn't call David a rebel here. Like we've seen his character up to this point. We've seen, how he's really loyal and to Saul, who is unfortunately still out to get him. So let's just that I think that's enough of a background to find out a little bit more about what happens from there. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there were David and his men descending toward her, and she met them. David had just said, "It's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness to, so, so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely." And it says David, and then it has a reference. And so the reference says, some Septuagint manuscripts, Hebrew with David's, it says with David's enemies, okay? So it's basically, one way or the other, whichever you cut it, it sounds like he's making an oath, be God deal with it, myself or my enemies ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him. So David has gotten to that breaking point, right? And he's like, I've been doing everything I know to do right, and help isn't coming. And I just, this man is treating me this way after the way that I've helped him. Like, are you kidding me? No. Everybody has their limits, and I am a fighter, actually. So let's see what happens at that point. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. And then I was noting that's very vulnerable. I mean, David has said a few things about Abigail. I said that I was going back to her introduction. I really didn't. I went back to the scene where she encounters David, the beginning, but and where she prepares to encounter him. But it also had said that Abigail it mentioned that she was beautiful, but it also mentioned that she was it intelligent, or let's see, yeah, intelligent. Abigail was an intelligent and beautiful woman. Intelligent comes first. But I would add to that brave. I mean, she's coming to confront David and his men who are, and she already knows, like, from what she's heard, that they're going to be not happy with the situation, and not knowing, what will be her interaction and fate coming toward them. So so she quickly, she bowed down before David with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man, Nabal," her husband. "He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him." Okay, so she's just telling it like it is, right? And I was commenting that this man did like he was set up with that name to live up to. Um, and as for me, your servant, I did not see the men my Lord sent. And now, my Lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my Lord be like Nabal. So I just think this is amazing, because she acknowledges it's not so much, yes, she's throwing herself at his mercy, but it's not so much even that she's like, save me. I don't know. She doesn't know necessarily what that, pledge or vow is that David made, and it was just actually to kill all the male people of the household. However, she's protecting, as well as she is acknowledging that David's um, David's God. His reputation has preceded him, and she's saying, as surely as your God lives, right, and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed. Basically, I'm here to keep you from avenging yourself, right? And I think that is a really good point to take note of. Okay, because he could have, and so many times in our walk, we can do that so easily. We get to our end, we're just like, no, and it's our natural inclination. But she's saying, hey, you have been got you have been spared from that. And listen to her talk a little bit more on that. "And let this gift which your servant has brought to my Lord be given to the men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because you fight the Lord's battles. And no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God." I just love that. "But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling." He's saying God will do it. Like, I'm trusting your God. I like that's I think what the testimony and the fame of someone who is living out God's um purpose in their life will do for those surrounding. She said, "When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant." Okay? So, listen, yes, she wants to spare her life. However, she said a whole lot more in magnitude than that. And she is letting him know, like, don't mess it up now. you know, you are God's man here, and you're you want him to be the one who does the whatever he's going to do. He's going to keep his promises. She's giving him kind of, it sounds like a prophecy, but she just knows she has this amazing trust that has developed in her from yeah, just from hearing of David and of God's work in his life already. So she's very, very, what's the word? She's certain, and she asked that simple request at the end of telling him all the good that would come from him not doing this act that he is on his way to do. So I think it's just really beautiful. And then David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him and said, "Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." When Abigail went to Nabal, he was in the house holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until daybreak. Okay? But she was not neglecting her wifely duties either. Now, because the next line says, "So then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all these things, and his heart failed him, and he became like a stone." Okay? And can you imagine? Because I think that he realizes in hearing this report, he's on the wrong side, you know? Um, and his wife has done everything to spare his life and the lives of his household. Um, and it's just amazing to me because for her it really showed through that it wasn't even like she was begging uh for their lives. It was more of her going for the purpose of um helping him, because you know what I mean, she made it very clear, like, how she felt that he was on the right side, and that she wanted him to not to mar that. And I think that that was just, and and of course him not doing that did spare the lives of the household of Nabal. So again, I think that this is definitely God communicating, through people, and placing purpose again David's path, and and it just shows his faithfulness, right? And so then it says, about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal and he died. So that's also just goes unnecessary to even say, like, when you when you allow for God to do what he's going to do, he'll do what he's going to do. You don't know what that will be, but you know it'll be justice. Okay? It's never something that we need to meddle in, you know. So we'll just let that be said and keep on going. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Praise be to the Lord who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. He has kept his servant from doing wrong and has brought Nabal's wrongdoing down on his own head." Then David sent word to Abigail, asking her to become his wife. His servants went to Carmel and said to Abigail, "David has sent us to you to take you to become his wife." She bowed down with her face to the ground and said, "I am your servant and am ready to serve you and wash the feet of my Lord's servants." Abigail quickly got on a donkey and, attended by her 5 female servants, went with David's messengers and became his wife. So I'll just finish this out and then make my comments. David had also married Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were both his wives. But Saul had given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to Paltiel, son of Laish, who was from Galim. Okay, Paltiel, it just says, the reference says Hebrew Palti, a variant of Paltiel. Okay, so we see one little quick note is that we see that Saul, I feel like he used his daughter Michal as like a pawn, and when it didn't work out for him the way he thought it would, he just took her back and gave her to someone else, right? So interestingly, and also I think it's pretty cool to see, like, that's very, what's the word that I had made this commentary in the last video, like, it shows consent really with Abigail, you know. I mean, she didn't have to really ask her twice or twist her arm, right? um she knew what kind of man that David was, and I think it's also just really uh a big point to punch that sometimes we remember a lot of the hugely negative things that David did in his sinfulness, um, and but I think this shows just like on the other side of this something very right, you know, because in, in the case of Bathsheba, which we have all, you know, I think heard of, and David, well, actually, when I was listening to my daughter's podcast, it was kind of interesting because she was interviewing someone else, and they had heard, there were parts of the story that they had heard and parts that she had heard, and they were really learning from one another as well. So you may not have heard of this part of the story where David, and I don't want to kind of, I won't do a, what you call it, when you tell a part of the movie but somebody else hasn't watched it or whatever it is. Okay, so we won't go there, but I will say, suffice to say, that there is a point where David sins egregiously, I think is the word. Yeah, it's in a big way. And it's because he sees something in someone, and I'll say in a woman, that he sees, or like her figure basically, and is attracted. And in this case, he's looking at so much more, right? um it even talks about how Abigail is intelligent before her beauty, but it also talks so much in this chapter. You see her character, and that she's godly. You know, if even if God wasn't the God of her people, that she is, what's the word, drawn to the true God, and she is willing to step out on that, and to follow that God, right? So I am just wanting to, finally get this video out and say, let's look at those things in this chapter that are so, I think, encouraging to us. That we can let God do when things don't work the way that they should, even, people that come against us undeservedly, uh, and let God handle that. Um, let's take these words to heart for ourselves too, and let them speak to us in those times of, like, don't take this into your hands and then take away from God's fame. God has big things for you in your life too, and you don't need that stain or on your conscience, as Abigail said. And also, just, really, when you're wanting to, find a mate, like, what are we looking for here? Like, let's don't go the sinful route when we're looking at surface things and we're not considering all of the components that go with, you know being a godly, having a godly spouse, somebody who, will be by your side. And David is known for having multiple wives. We will see that doesn't really serve him well either. But I think that in this one scenario, we can take from what he did, and apply it for ourselves, for those of you out there who are single like me. All right. Well, next time I will be back more shortly, and I hope it'll be tomorrow. And happy January 8th. It's my son's birthday.